This is Transforce96 here with another video review. This time we have the Hot Toys Star Wars The Force Awakens Captain Phasma figure. So I was very much anticipating getting this figure, and I'm finally going to get to the review. Sorry it's taken so long, but the reason I'm doing this review now is that I'm going to be doing a kind of large comparison between all of my Captain Phasma figures, which I should be posting quite soon, and I'm just kind of reviewing any Captain Phasma figures that I haven't reviewed yet, as well as I'll be reviewing the two new ones that I have just bought. So yeah, so let's get on to the review. I will say that in some scenes of this review, I might be wearing gloves, simply so that I don't put fingerprints on it, because it's such a high chrome color with this figure. You know, you can really damage it with fingerprints and things like that. So I know it's stupid. You know, I feel kind of stupid for doing it, but I am gonna wear some gloves, particularly when I'm going over the articulation and things like that. So yeah, so let's get started. But before we go into the actual figure, let's talk about her accessories. You get quite a solid selection of hands, I will say. First of all, you get an extra set of wrist pegs, of course. Then you get a pair of fists, a pair of relaxed palms, where the index finger is actually pointed out a bit further than the rest, so they can kind of work as a pointing finger or somewhat of a directing kind of hand. Then you have these two, which are meant for holding the barrel of the weapon, so if you want to have her hold the gun with two hands. Then you get two that are meant for holding the weapon, and then you get these two, which I don't know what they're for. You know, I don't know, because they look like they're meant for holding some sort of grenade or something like that, because the grip is a little too close to actually hold like the barrel of the weapon. So I'm not quite sure what that hand's for. If you guys know, that would be, you know, I'd like to know. But other than that, I don't know. The only thing that I could have wanted really with this figure, other than what we have, is maybe a hand that's like really like a directly pointing finger, where, you know, her hand is closed except for the index finger that's pointing. That's the only other type of hand I could want. Other than that, we do have basically everything that we could want, and a little bit more, because there's two kind of random hands in there as well. You do, of course, get her signature blaster, as you can see, looking quite nice. It's kind of a shinier, goldish type of color. It's not very bright gold or anything, but it does have a bit of a gold tint to it. As you can see, it looks quite nice, has black details on it, and a bit of weathering. But it looks very cool. I do like it quite a bit. This little area is on a hinge there, so that can be moved down. And overall, looking quite nice. I do like the weapon. Nothing, you know, amazing here, but it does work perfectly fine, and she holds it very well. And you can get her to hold it in, you know, a double arm stance as well. I'll show that now. So as you can see, she can hold the blaster quite nicely in two hands. Looks very good, very natural, and you know, it's holding it very straight as well. Most of the stormtroopers from the First Order from Hot Toys typically can't hold their guns very well. They can do it, but it's difficult, and it's not very natural in some cases because of their restrictions on articulation. While this one, she can hold it very nicely. So I will go over why that is in more detail when I go over her articulation, but as you can see, she can hold the weapon with two hands very nicely and naturally. You of course get the standard base that comes, you know, with every Force Awakens figure from Hot Toys. As you can see, it looks quite nice. It does have the First Order logo there, and you have Star Wars Captain Phasma written on the base. Looking quite good, and you do have the cradle as you go up. You know, quite nice standard base. The only thing that's different about it is that the outline is in like a kind of like a dark silver rather than the normal white of all of the other First Order figures. So I don't like that, because actually, you know, it was so minute that I didn't notice it for a while. I just kind of felt like her she was always like in the shadows or something, and then I realized, you know, these figures are all lit in the same direction, so there is actually a difference in the coloring. I actually took a look, and yeah, sure enough, she does have a different color to it, which I don't like, because everybody else has the same base but in white except for her. Now if everybody else had like their own custom color based on their character, that would be fine, but since nobody else does except for her, it just looks really odd and doesn't fit in with the group. So it's a small complaint, but I definitely don't like it. You know, I could see what they were going for, but unless they wanted to do like flat chrome, I find it quite pointless. Alright, so going over the actual figure here, starting off with her helmet. As you can see, it looks very cool. I definitely love it quite a bit. The black is very dark in the recesses of the armor, which I think looks nice. Towards the mouth area, of course, you do have that wonderful texturing, which looks good. The eyes are glossy and look really nice. And as you can see, just as an example, the paint throughout is really good. Obviously, you have this extremely bright, shiny chrome, which is very reflectant, and then you have these speckling, dotted effects around the edges of the pieces of armor to give it that worn feeling. Very nice. You know, obviously the best painted Captain Phasma out there, basically. And just looks wonderful. Now, when we go over the torso here, this is where I draw some issue. As you can see, now let's give you a bit of a wider shot so you can kind of get a better look at it. The torso is extremely cloudy. It has a total cloudy effect, which is very annoying, and I really can't stand it. It's something that doesn't look good at all, and just, it's extremely strange. You know, I thought that there was something wrong with my Captain Phasma when I first got it, and then I did talk to some people who had this figure already, and they, you know, concurred that it's a normal thing. I also watched some reviews, so this is a normal release run, how you're going to get it with a cloudy torso, which I don't understand. I'm not quite sure what the reason is for this, why the torso couldn't be the same chrome as the rest of the figure, but it's cloudy and really bad looking. So I am not a fan of this torso, and it is it makes it, I almost don't even like looking at this figure because that annoys me so much, I must say. So I'm not a big fan of that, and it's definitely incredibly annoying. But we go over the arms and everything. She does have excellent, you know, paint everywhere else, basically. And then her bodysuit underneath, obviously you have the rubber bits anywhere where there isn't armor, and it looks quite good. And it's the same type of rubber as the normal stormtroopers use. You know, it's the same deal at the thighs and everything. You've got the same stuff. A lot of these pieces are on via Velcro, as far as her knee pads and the little like crotch piece here. It's all on with Velcro. I will say on this side, the Velcro piece that was attached to the actual pad did come off. I had to re-glue it to be able to put it back on. So I would say be careful with that. However, it's a very easy fix. And she does have, you know, pretty skinny legs there, which are accurate, and kind of longer feet. So does look quite nice. Her articulation is obviously was a piece of the figure that I was really interested to see, because obviously the stormtroopers were so limited in articulation. How does she fare? She's better. She certainly is. She came out after the stormtroopers, which means that they had some time to fix some things, similar to what they did with the riot control stormtrooper. But going over the articulation here, as you can see, she can look up quite a decent amount. She can look down. You can pivot her head very far, which I do like. I mean, particularly when she's talking about FN2187 and she says that he was evaluated, then sent to reconditioning. She kind of does her little head tilt, so you can absolutely, you know, recreate that type of look with this. Yeah, she's kind of like this, and then she kind of goes straight like that. So yeah, so you can definitely get those Phasma mannerisms there down with the head articulation. The shoulders, let's see. As you can see, the joints are very stiff. She can move her shoulder out quite far. The shoulder pad is just on a little rubber piece, so that can, you know, be raised up, and then when you put her arm down, it'll fall down with it, and that does look pretty good. She can bring her arm forward a bit as well, which does look quite nice. And the rubber does resist quite a bit, but it's strong enough that it really isn't an issue. Then with the elbows, this is the best piece of engineering. They did kind of redesign the body underneath to have a ratchet feature. So even though the rubber is really fighting it, you can get her arm to ratchet up. So as you can see, you get a solid 90 degrees. That might even just be slightly over 90 degrees, which allows you to be able to hold her weapon with two hands. Very nice. And as you can see, it's, you know, it's standing there. It's pretty tough there. If that joint was slightly looser, the rubber would just fling it right back into position because it's so tough. Now the legs, they really didn't improve much. Not much you can do. You can kind of go out, you know, a bit. That's close to as far as you can get. That's like as far as you can get forward. It's pretty terrible. The knees have the same type of ratchet effect, so they can be bent a decent amount, I would say. But with the thighs not being able to be bent, I mean, who cares what the knees can do? And then the ankles, the ankles can go down pretty far, and they can pivot, so the ankles are pretty good. So overall, her articulation is improved from the Stormtroopers. It's still not perfect by any means, but it is certainly much better, and therefore you can get her in some nice stances. Obviously, in the movie, she wasn't very dynamic, so it doesn't matter a whole ton, but what you really want are the stances of her holding the gun, which you can achieve based on her articulation. Alright, let's go over the cape design. The cape is interesting, you know, from the front it looks pretty decent. I do like it. It hangs naturally. You can get it to hang even more naturally if you really mess with it quite a bit, you know, after you get her in a pose that you want. But as you can see, the cape is kind of this harder material, raincoat type of material, which is interesting. The bottom of it is super, like, battle damaged. I mean, it has a ton of like sand and mud detail on it, which is crazy. I mean, I think that they went overboard with it, to be honest. I think that having this be more clean, with a bit of speckling would be fine, but I mean, this thing looks like it's just been dragged through the mud, which I certainly don't remember from the movie, that looking like that in the slightest. So I am not a big fan of how they've gone about weathering this this cape. As far as if there's a wire in there, I think that there is. I mean, like, yeah, as you can see, there must be a wire in there. The only issue is it's a pretty thin wire, so you can't do much. I mean, you can get a bit like that. On this side, I don't even know if there's a wire on this side. There might be. But again, I mean, it's just the material on here is hard enough that it really doesn't allow you to do anything dynamic, so it's kind of pointless. I think that it does help slightly in getting it to fall in a correct manner. Like if you want it draped over her arm, it might be helpful, but I certainly don't think it's very good. I don't think that it holds its form very nicely. So I think that the wiring effect is nice, but it doesn't really contribute anything. So yeah, just another look, super damaged. I really don't like all the weathering on this cape. So here's Phasma compared to another Hot Toys Stormtrooper figure, and we just have an average Stormtrooper. As you can see, she's much taller than him. They are both on the same base, so they're at the same level. She is much taller, which is accurate to the actress who plays her, Gwendolyn Christie, and as well as how she's portrayed in the movie. So I think that her height here is definitely accurate with the other First Order figures. So overall, I find this to be a pretty good figure. I do love the chrome coloring on it. However, I'm extremely disliking the cloudy effect that it has on the torso. And considering the torso is like the biggest part of the figure, it really is just unmistakable. You can't even just kind of put it out of your mind because it's front and center, which is definitely very disappointing. I'm not a big fan of how the cape is designed. I think that there could have been a lot of improvements to it from a color perspective as well as from a functional perspective. But I do like the fact that they've designed or redesigned the body sculpt to better be able to manipulate the joints, considering she does have a layer of rubber on top of all of those joints. I think that is quite nice. However, even with those improvements, she's still not that good as far as articulation goes. She's a character that really didn't do much in the first movie. However, she will be featured in the next movie, so you know, if that does get you down, but you're still kind of wondering if you want this figure, I would say that you probably, you know, will probably be happy with her her representation in Star Wars Episode 8, and therefore, you know, I would say was going to be a pretty good purchase for you. I would definitely try to get it on some sort of sale, though. It's not selling very well, I don't think, so you should be able to do that if you wait a little bit. But I personally do like this figure, purely because it is Phasma, and I do love how they've weathered the armor itself. I think that is very nice, probably the strongest feature of this figure. So it has its ups and downs. Overall, I like it because I like Phasma as a character, and certainly I like her as far as how her armor is designed. So there you go. So let me know what you guys think of this figure, and thanks so much for watching.